This is Vince Russo, bro. I am on Count It Out, bro. Count It Out, bro. The greatest show out there with Mike and Tyler. Where are you? Are you watching this show? You better be watching this show, bro, because Mike and Tyler are right up there at the top of the heap. Count it out. Don't miss it.
This episode of Count It Out with Mike and Tyler is provided by Cottage Springs.
Listening to Count It Out with Mike and Tyler.
Well, we are live, pals, and welcome to another edition of the Bill Apter Sealed of Approved, provided by Cottage Springs. Count It Out with Mike and Tyler. My name is Tyler, and I am joined, as always, by the one and only, let's go old school today, Mojito Mike.
Ooh,
what's going on, brother?
I'm Riesling Mike today. I'm having a nice glass of white wine tonight.
Oh, fancy man. I'm drinking Cottage Springs in a cup, not Coors Light, which I can't believe I'm doing that.
I've never seen you drink beer on this show. I don't think you've ever drank beer on this show.
Well, I mean, the liquor stores are on strike, so my Cottage Springs supply obviously is empty because I love it so much and it does not stay in my house very quickly. And yeah, it sucks. So I found an old dirty Coors Light in my fridge, and it's the only way I can get through an hour with you every week is to at least have a drink. So here we are. Before we get into anything today, before I tell you to go over to Count It Out 7 on YouTube and subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated. Before we talk about that and we plug that, huge thank you to good friend of the show and reigning Barry Wrestling 3 Pistols champion Van Landen. For those of you watching on YouTube, you might have noticed a brand new entrance video for Count It Out with Mike and Tyler. I just absolutely love it. It matches with our brand new song. Brand new Count It Out this year coming at you. And we
told you early this year that we were going to do a lot of things new, that we're going to bring out a lot of cool little new things here and there, and we're doing it. Not only are we fulfilling that promise, we're also fulfilling the promise of the growth of the show, because look at our view count is rising every day. Our subscription count is rising every day. The work you're doing, what I asked you guys to do, you're telling people, people are hearing about the show, people are hitting those buttons, people are watching the show, people are watching our clips, those beautiful reels that Tyler makes. They're out there, they're getting out there. We're getting some of these clips have upwards towards 10,000 views on them.
Yeah.
We're doing really, really cool stuff, and people are actually digging them. So thank you guys for being part of this.
Yeah, so to those of you that are new to the Count It Out team, welcome. Take a look in the archives. There is a lot of fantastic interviews, and stick around for the future because we got a lot more fantastic interviews coming at you.
A lot of good ideas coming up.
All right, it is Count It Out with Mike and Tyler. Double list edition this week.
Yeah, we don't do this often.
So this is going to be a little later in the show, but we are going to be talking about the Death of WCW, Who Killed WCW documentary that Vice put out, the same guys that do Dark Side of the Ring, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And
produced by Dwayne Johnson, however.
That's Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
That was the only caveat.
And was Mama Rhodes involved in that at all with Dwayne? Because he loves Mama Rhodes now.
He does love Mama Rhodes. I don't think so.
I enjoyed the documentary, so in honor of that documentary, we are going to be counting down. On my end, I will be counting down the top 7 in-ring reasons why I think WCW was killed. And Mike, you are going to be doing
the top 7 backstage reasons why WCW was killed.
Did you have a hard time narrowing that down to 7?
I did. I didn't think it was gonna be that hard, because when I first thought of it, I'm like, okay, well, here are my things, blah, 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 blah. And as usual, this happens to both you and I on a regular basis. you think of what your number 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4 could be, and it's kind of easy. Then your 5, 6, and 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 all come into play. You're like, uh-oh, what have I done? I got it down. My number 7's questionable, but I stand by the rest of my list for sure.
I think I did all right. I mean, a lot of mine have been spoken about to death, so I'm not gonna like harper on them too much. And I'm sure same with your list as well. We've, WCW closed down in 2001, the beginning of 2001, but they made an impact, and I found watching that documentary was very refreshing and very frustrating. And there were parts of it where I was just yelling at my TV, being like, why? Like, why? What is. But it was also nice to see a fresh spin on this and not the WWE narrative, which is what we always get. And it was nice to see kind of a more honest and raw story. I felt like it was a lot more truthful than what we've heard in the past.
I'll tell you who the MVP of this docuseries was.
I know exactly who it is. Fucking bitter Bret Hart.
Bret the Bitter Man Hart.
Man,
my favorite part of this entire thing is like the first episode where they're all thanking for something that the WWE.
What would you say? What would you say at their eulogy? What would you say at WCW's eulogy?
Is that what the question was?
Yeah.
It's like, thanks for the memories, thanks for the moments. Nash says, thanks for the cash. And Bret Hart's just like, thanks for nothing. Go fuck yourself. Holy shit, man. Did I lose it?
Oh, and then the reel that they put out as well of every time, I think it was episode 2, and it was like it was a cut of every time Bret Hart said that something was stupid or someone was an idiot. It's like a minute and a half of him, and it's all different times. Like, it was so amazing. This is my favorite version of Bret Hart, I think, since 1992. And I have a huge Bret Hart mark, but I've always kind of been like, oh, I don't like bitter Bret Hart. Like, it sucks. But I think I might have changed my tune there, and I might love bitter Bret Hart.
I cannot stand bitter Bret Hart.
And I was on social media earlier, and I saw our good friend Kaz Jordan from Australian Takeover he was at AEW in Calgary. He was beat up by Britt Baker, and then he was at the bar with Bret Hart after. He posted a picture of him and Bret together. So one last little trip for our boy Kaz before he heads home.
Who do you think came off the worst in this documentary? And not in the way of because they were the reasons for the death, but who came off looking bad?
Kevin Nash. Kevin Nash came off really bad to me.
A douchebag. However, he did admit that he was completely stoned off his ass the entire time.
Russo, I thought, came off pretty bad.
Again, came off like a douchebag, but I think it's only because he kind of is one. But for me, I'm going to go with Bill Goldberg. My number one problem with Bill Goldberg for this whole thing was Goldberg never, ever, ever took responsibility.
Oh, I disagree strongly with you.
They just kept showing like the things he did wrong over and over again, and he'd be like, "Well, what do you want?"
No, I don't. I don't.
100%
the whole first part of Goldberg, though, like, I thought he was very raw and honest for the first half of the show he was in, and then by the end of it, he came across douchey. But he was very open. I didn't know what I was doing. I was in a position I should not have been in. I was not qualified to be there.
He never really took blame. He never took blame for hurting people. He never took blame for anything.
At the beginning, he did.
Passed over the blame. It's like, yeah, I hurt those guys, but I shouldn't have been in the ring anyways. I thought at the beginning he came across very humble, and then as he kept going, I see what you're saying.
But I don't think he was. I thought a lot of other people came off much worse than him.
I was crisscrossing episodes because I would watch one episode of that, and then while waiting for the next episode, I would watch an episode or two of this season of Dark Side because I'm behind. Man, I wish I didn't do that because it would put a bad taste in my mouth. I'd have to go back to WCW after watching like the Buff Bagwell episode of Dark Side, which was just like
was awful. I wanted to punch Buff Bagwell in the face in that
I wanted
episode.
to
He came across the
punch him.
most unlikable human being on the planet.
Listen, from my personal standpoint, my very brief interaction with Buff Bagwell, Marcus was amazing with me. He came off as the nicest guy in the world to me. On this documentary, what a dick.
Yeah, he did not come across great.
The episode with Brutus Beefcake.
Oh, what
Nobody
a
came off
surprise.
good in that episode.
No, I'm not a Brutus fan. You know that.
His wife, not like
Greg Valentine, they all came across. Yeah, I don't know. And then there was like all that drama because Brutus's wife got pissed at Valentine after Dark Side, so she put out all these videos of him saying the N-word and stuff.
oh no.
Yeah, and there's Craig Valentine, so nobody cared, which is sad because I loved Craig as a worker, but I mean, now he's just someone.
I don't want to know that about him though.
He looks like one of those dogs, like droopy dogs, like droopy skin, you know what I'm saying? Like he looks like a Karen. Like Greg did not age well.
There's a great meme out there that it shows like female gym teachers now, and shows this really attractive woman, and it says female gym teachers when I was a kid. It shows a
Greg Valentine. I've seen that. So have you watched all of Dark Side of the Ring?
I think I might still have an episode or two left.
I thought this was one of the best seasons of Dark Side of the Ring.
I don't remember what the last two episodes are, but I don't think I've seen them.
Yeah, this was a great season. I was very happy with it.
Not, because the last episode is Black Sunday, right?
Yes,
which I have not seen yet.
Which our friend Holden Albright, I believe, is Ole Anderson in that.
Oh, no kidding.
The Sandman episode was pretty fucked up.
I have not seen Sandman yet.
And what else was in there? There's a couple. I can't remember. But what was it? Season 5?
I think so.
Yeah, it was. I thought it was a great season. But
so far, I've enjoyed it. Yeah.
Sherry's was good.
Sherry's was fantastic.
So yeah, you have 2 episodes left. You have Sandman and Vince.
And
Chris Adams was sad to watch.
I have not watched the Chris Adams episode.
Chris Colts was really fucked up. That was a crazy episode.
Yeah.
Harley Race was good.
Harley's is good, yeah.
Terry Gordy's was really sad to watch.
I feel like I didn't learn anything in Harley's, though. I feel like I knew everything already.
Yeah.
Terry Gordy, I learned a couple things.
Yeah.
Like I enjoyed that episode.
Yeah, I was sad watching that one.
But you're right, it was very sad.
I found that to be one of the hardest ones of the year to watch, in all honesty. Let's talk a little bit of wrestling, Mike.
Let's do it.
Let's start with I really want to talk about this. I was really pumped up after this angle happened last week on AEW. As we record this, it is Tuesday night, so we have not seen the follow-up to it yet. Mm-hmm. But Maria May and Tony Storm, okay. What an angle this was.
Are we not keeping this for something?
Oh, that's right. We are keeping it for my Cottage Springs Punch Out of the Week.
And now, the Cottage Springs Punch Out of the Week. Find your favorite flavors at cottagesprings.ca.
Cottage Springs Punch Out of the Week time here. I miss Cottage Springs. I need to place an online order or something because I just can't drink beer.
I literally finished my last 2 cans yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah, damn. But anyways, I digress. I am really excited. I really want to talk about Tony Storm and Maria May. I thought this was an incredible angle. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite angles of the year so far. Right at the beginning too, like with Willow Nightingale dressed up in the Owen Hart Danger gear.
Love that. I'm a big fan of Willow Nightingale in general. Mm-hmm. I really am. I've been a big fan of her since she was in. They really pushed her in ROH when they were trying to do that women's division in ROH, and they were building it around a couple of girls. And she was one of them. I was a big fan of her there. Obviously, I do not watch AEW weekly, so I don't see enough of her. But what I know of her and what I've seen of her, I absolutely adore. Mm-hmm. So the fact that she was in this position in the tournament, I love. The fact that she came out, and I know Maria May was wearing the pink and black, I think.
Yeah, everyone except for Hangman did pink and black.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, because he's a heel. He's a dirty heel.
Okay. But Willow comes out during doing the danger gimmick, which I absolutely fucking love.
Yeah, and so Maria May picks up the win, earns her shot at Toni Storm for Wembley Stadium. And I was like so shocked by this because I think a lot of people were expecting a turn from Toni.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people thought it was going to drag out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And they celebrated, they were
That
hugging.
much of a turn. Tony's never really been a clear-cut babyface.
No, even though she's like a huge face, but she's like a
Yes.
heel. Like she's booked as a heel.
So it wouldn't be that much of a turn. Turning Maria or Marie,
Yeah, Maria May.
That's going to turn heads.
Well, and the way they did it was so incredible. Like they were celebrating, they ran up to get the belt and the trophy. Tony was gawking to the camera how great my protege is. And Maria got up there, picked up the belt. Tony met her up there and whack, immediately just destroyed Tony. Just destroyed her. And Tony hit a gusher.
I think what made this for me was the fact that Tony didn't fight back.
Mm-hmm.
Tony let it happen. Tony was so awestruck, shocked.
I don't even think it was that. I don't think it was any of that yet. I think it was she got rocked with the belt, unexpected. Her bell was rung technically, right? Like I think you got the emotion like towards the end of it, obviously, but like when she picked up that high heel and just started bashing her head in, like it was sickening to watch in the best way. It was
this close to too much for me.
It was hard, but you know what though? If you go back and look at it, all those shots were safe. It was just Tony's spectacular selling.
Yeah,
like spectacular. I think Tony got caught in the lip with one shot.
I've been saying this for a while now. Toni Storm, Toni Storm is one of the best things to happen to wrestling in a long time.
Absolutely.
I liked her in WWE. I did. But this character that she's developed in AEW is so fresh. It's so different. It's so cool.
And her in-ring has been phenomenal.
Everything she's done. And then, that is no surprise. Her in-ring has always been good.
Yeah, it has, but it's another level now.
But she has written her ticket to be a star. I have very little reason to watch AEW myself as a fan. If I'm going to tune AEW, she's one of those reasons. And she has been for a while.
I'm going to give you a 5-month spoiler right now. If Toni Storm is not my Woman of the Year in our year-end show, Woman Wrestler of the Year, then somebody's had a fucking banger 5 months from now until the end of the year.
There are people who could contend. There are people who are just on Tony's heels that could have a great 5 months. However, if I was a gambling man and had to pick right now who it's going to be Tony.
I am not taking away from anything that anybody else is doing, because you're right. There are some incredible women doing some incredible things right now. I just don't see any of them doing what Tony's doing.
They're going to have to really up their games to beat Tony right now.
And you know who's in the running for me as well is Chelsea Green.
Chelsea Green. Man, what a year she's had. What a way to prove people like me wrong, because I gave up on Chelsea a long time ago. I didn't like her initial WWE run. So when she came back, well, she did the stuff in TNA, and I was really enjoying it and stuff like that. But when she came back to WWE, I'm like, all right, it's going to be more of the same, blah, blah, blah. No, man, she is doing the best work of her career. She's one of the best, I was going to say best women wrestlers, but she's really one of the best parts of WWE programming right now.
She's an incredible performer.
She's one of the reasons I enjoyed that ladder match last week. She's going to continue to be in consideration for at least, Woman of the Year from WWE's end, anyways.
Absolutely.
And that's not to take anything away from what's going on with Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley, because I want to talk about them. That's not to say that who knows what's going to happen if Charlotte Flair comes back before the end of the year. There's lots of time left in the year, but at the other end, there's not a lot of time left in the year. If you want to beat Tony Storm, you better get off your ass and start doing it now.
100%.
Because Tony's not going to stop. You don't just have to beat her what she's done up till now. You have to beat her what she's done up till now and then continue to beat her what she's going to continue to do. Which, if she's going to somehow outdo herself, wow.
If Tony can happen to get by Maria May, look out, Wendy Richter. She's coming for you.
I love that. I love that so much. And let's not take away anything from Maria May. Maria May is a phenomenal talent.
She's so new to this.
Yeah.
Did some great work in Japan. And if you were to tell me at the beginning of the year that Maria May would be one of AEW's best signings of the year, I don't know if I'd believe you or not. But
no, maybe not.
I mean, other than Ospreay, like I think she might be the second best signing that AEW has, and I think that she's done more for AEW than Ospreay has so far.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm not saying from in-ring, obviously.
Yeah.
But I mean, Ospreay, he's having incredible matches, but he's not moving the needle yet.
He's not must-watch TV for me.
And I think
I don't want to tune in every once to see what Ospreay is doing.
I think this Maria and Tony feud could add some viewers.
I do not disagree with you at all. Speaking of people in Japan,
well, let's put a bow on the Cottage Springs punch out of the week first.
Very good.
And now carry on with your point.
Speaking of people in Japan, if we're going to talk about people with contention to go for Tony's reign as Woman of the Year, don't forget about Jordynne Grace. Jordynne Grace is still doing great things in TNA. Still a threat in the shadows of NXT. Her TNA contract is coming up at the end of the year. We'll probably end up signing with WWE. She's going to be big and talked about in the second half of 2024.
I think so as well.
Yeah.
And she's got one of those weird title matches coming up where like everyone thinks Jordan's going to win, and I just feel like Ash might beat her because everybody thinks Jordan's going to win. But I mean, kudos to TNA for selling out with Montreal, and I'll tip my hat to PCO and Speedball Mike Bailey. 4,000 tickets sold, and PCO has been on everything.
Good for them for selling out twice.
Yeah,
they sold the place out. They released 2,000 more tickets, and then they sold out again.
Yeah, it's gonna be a hot show, man.
Amazing.
Keep your eye on Speedball and Ali. That could be match of the year
for sure.
Man, wrestling's awesome right now. Speaking of TNA, we saw the Rascals pick up a 6-man tag victory on NXT tonight. We saw Joe Hendry come out again. If you're booking TNA right now, are you putting the belt on Joe Hendry on Slammiversary?
Yeah, I am.
I think I am too.
I don't think I was saying that 2 weeks ago. Because I didn't want it to be just because of his extra attention with WWE, but he's too hot right now not to do something with. He's too hot not to capitalize on. And I don't think anybody right now could use this win more than him.
I agree. It's one of those
look at the 6 men in that. Josh doesn't hurt by losing this.
No.
No one's going to think twice about Josh not being champion after Slammiversary. The same can be said for Macklin.
No one expects Macklin to win. Macklin's not ready again. They got to heat him up again.
Yeah, Moose. I don't know what we do with Moose after a loss. I think this does hurt Moose a bit, but not.
I don't think Moose's work has been phenomenal.
Yeah,
as the champion, but I don't have the same feelings I
don't look at him as the face of TNA.
No,
I don't. I still think of Josh as one of the faces of TNA. Up until they're leaving, I was still looking at Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin as the faces of TNA.
Looks like they're WWE bound.
It sure as hell does look like that. I look at Jordynne Grace as one of the faces of TNA. And now, thanks for the extra attention and hopefully his first title reign, I think Joe Hendry could be stepping up to be one of the faces of TNA.
I think a nice little 4-month reign for Joe Henry, 3-month, 4-month reign would be perfect for him.
Who's your first few feuds?
For Joe Henry?
Yeah.
You rematch Moose right away, I think.
I think so.
You give him maybe Macklin.
Yeah, that's got fucking money written all over it.
I'm trying to think of I want, like, you want to give him a big name too, like to kind of establish his title reign.
Yeah.
Maybe who do you got?
Because I know it's gonna be entertaining. And it's gonna give a lot of work for Hendry a lot of stuff for Hendry to work with. I give him Cardona.
Yeah, was Cardona's healthy?
Yeah.
I would maybe, it's just like it sucks that Cardona's not in there, you know what I mean? Like he just comes in as a part-timer and
yeah, but that's his
but
job right. He comes
I just
in,
don't like bringing him
product.
in. I just don't like bringing him in and giving him a title shot right away. It just gives me that old TNA taste. Like, here's the next WWE guy. Here's a title shot. Do you want the belt? No, okay. Just
But I don't think anybody looks at him as that WWE guy anymore. I don't think
I know.
anybody looks at him as
see
Zack Ryder anymore.
I just don't
Zack
like.
dead and gone.
I just don't like when people come into a company and get a title shot right away. And AEW is bad with that as well. I just don't.
Yeah.
I don't like it. I like when people earn their shot. But
Well,
I think
okay.
Moose,
Well, how do you feel about what they're doing with this crossover then? Because that's what we're getting in TNA and NXT.
in which regards, like they're doing open challenges.
You have Jordan coming over and getting an NXT title shot. You have.
I think it's different because you're establishing
coming over and getting a TNA title shot.
Well, when you have the champion come out and say, I'm issuing an open challenge for my title, like it doesn't matter at that point. You can bring anybody in because
right.
Like I would like to see scenes like that where the champ comes out and is like, I'm issuing an open challenge, and I want to see backstage people fucking fighting to get out there.
Me too.
I think they've done that once before. I don't know which company did it, but it's like if I'm on a roster, male or woman, whatever, and a champion is in the ring going, anybody that wants a shot, get out here and you can have it. And I'm a guy like a Trey Miguel or a Johnny Swinger, or like not like the upper echelon guys that's in title contention. I'm gonna fucking do anything in my power to get out there.
Especially if you're the next Shawn Michaels.
Johnny Swinger. Just the second coming of Shawn Michaels. Does that make Reverso his Bret Hart? Or I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I have something to ask you moving on before we get to the list. One of my favorite, you talk about your favorite angle of the year. I'm not gonna say this is my favorite angle of the year, but it's definitely one of my favorite angles of the year. Is the stuff going on with Dirty Dom and Liv Morgan and
phenomenal.
And Rhea Ripley. Very entertaining stuff. Very entertaining stuff. Here's something I want to see whose side you're on. It's you're either on my side or on the guy I'm about to talk about, because I don't agree with his take at all. Vince Russo came out yesterday and talked about how he thinks this whole story is dumb and doesn't make any sense because of the fact.
This was coming from Vince Russo.
Thank you. Because of the fact that we all know that Dom and Rhea are married in real life to other people. So so how are we supposed to believe these stories? Blah, blah, blah. My take, and I want to hear your take in a second, but my take is, when did we fucking forget that these guys are actors? Dominic Mysterio, as far as I'm concerned, is not married. Rhea Ripley is not married. I forget her name all of a sudden. Something Adams, Dana Adams or something. She is married. Dominic Gutierrez, whatever the hell the real Mysterio name is, he is married. They're characters. They are actors playing characters on a fucking TV show. Why can't we step back? And this is a guy who talks about this all the time. He talks about how we're supposed to be creating TV shows. It's not real. It's not a sport. It's not real wrestling. It's TV. We're supposed to be making TV. So you above all people, why can't you step back? Forget real life and just enjoy the story they're telling as actors who are not married, who are in love. Dirty Dom and Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan's in there now. And it's a story. It's fun. It's a TV show. Why can't you get on board with that? It makes no sense. Well, what's your take on this?
I think that's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my entire life. So, like, what? I'm not allowed to enjoy watching. What am I watching right now? I don't know. Whatever TV show I'm watching.
Right.
I'm watching the Gilmore Girls right now, and I can't believe that Lorelai is going to date Luke because, well, Lorelai in real life is married to somebody else.
Right.
On top of that, this is the same guy that wrote Val Venus getting his dick chopped off. So, like, I'm supposed to believe that, you know, or that like look at some of the angles in wrestling. You want me, and not even that Russo wrote. Let's just, I'm supposed to believe that Hulk Hogan threw the Giant off the roof of Cobo Hall, and then 25 minutes later, the Giant came out and dry humped Hulk Hogan in the middle of the ring with the Yeti.
Yep. I mean,
right?
that part's actually believable. No, but you're 100% right.
It doesn't matter.
No, I sat down and watched for years, for the better part of 2 years, the story of this fucking undead wizard who burnt his family to the ground, and the brother came back to life, and they became best friends, and then they weren't, and then they were again, and he shot lightning from his hands, and the other one controlled fire, but that's okay.
I mean, I'm living in a world where the Firefly Funhouse is real.
Right. Well, he doesn't like that either. So.
Well, I mean, I don't get it. Like, I don't get it. I think that's dumb.
Yeah.
There's a reason
I think
why
he just hates anything he didn't create.
Well, everything he created killed things.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. He did some good things in the advent of the Attitude Era.
Yeah, when he had like a multitude of people babysitting him, and being like, no. Like, could you imagine if Vince Russo had full creative control over the Attitude Era? You know what would happen right now?
God.
There would be no wrestling in the world. Like, wrestling would be over.
Yeah.
Like, it would be out of business.
Instead of The Undertaker kidnapping Stephanie, we would have had Stephanie on a pole.
Like, well, yeah, that doesn't sound too bad to see, but like, if WWE would have gone out of business and fucking WCW would still be alive, and then they would have gone out of business, and then what? TNA would be the #1 company in the world right now.
And even that, you watch some of the original, like the first season of TNA, like the Asylum years when Ed Ferrero was still there and stuff like that. Some of it is hard to watch.
You know who else was there? Vince Russo.
Well, yeah.
You gotta talk about sports entertainment extreme.
Oh man. But if we're going to talk about Vince Russo, let's talk about Vince Russo, because I don't think there's going to be a lack of Russo talk in today's list. On either
well, on my side, not as much because I'm more in ring, but definitely on your side.
Not like he didn't put a couple nails in the coffin on that end of the camera.
Well, yes, his booking was not great at all. We will talk about some of that.
Putting himself in some angles. I mean, he was WCW champion, for Christ's sake.
Yes, we will talk about the WCW title for sure. Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
No, I'd like you to go first, because this is your list. I consider my list to be kind of secondary. This is just kind of added to yours.
It's only taken you 4 years, but we finally got you to the right mind frame. Okay, it was right there. I was right there. If you're gonna give me a gift, like, I have to take it. You have a great jersey on, though, and you're a great person, and
it's the nicest thing you've ever said about me.
I was really forced, but I'm trying. Okay. All right. The top 7 in-ring moments that I believe killed WCW. I'm going to start with my number 7. And now I went back and forth with 2 different things here. But I went with this one, even though we were really like, I don't think there was much that could be done to save WCW at this point. But I want to talk about the New Blood versus the Millionaires Club. This was awful. This was awful.
Yeah.
Not to
Now,
mention,
this is after so at this point in the company, Bischoff has been fired, Russo's in, Bischoff comes back because Russo's so bad. Now
well,
Bischoff and
Russo's
Russo,
also been fired by this point. He's been sent home.
but is it, at this point is Bischoff and Russo not
They are together, but it went
together?
Bischoff got fired,
Yeah.
and then a couple of years, like a year later, or the end of that year, they brought Russo in. And then by the end of that year, Russo got fired.
Yeah.
And then they brought both of them back after about 5 months.
Yeah. And so at this point, it's Hogan and Bischoff versus Russo. We'll talk about this when we get to my list, but that's the picture we're painting. And to me, this kind of comes out in this storyline, is it not?
Well, I mean, on screen they were all they were both heels, Bischoff and Russo.
But this Millionaires Club versus the new blood, it really tells the story of the company being divided, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, the leader of your New Blood was Jeff Jarrett, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who had been working since the early 90s.
Which, yeah, why is he?
Like Jarrett was probably like mid 30s, late 40s or early 40s by this point.
Yeah.
Like it just
Why
nothing about
the New Blood.
Also, why are you positioning your New Blood as the heels?
True.
Like if you're trying to get new talent over, why do you not want the young, exciting people to be your baby faces?
Exactly.
Like what TNA did much later with the Main Event Mafia, which was also terrible.
But not as terrible.
No, it was much better. It started out really good, but the 2 things that both companies did that they had in common was the veterans destroyed the new people every time, every single time.
Well, of course, because who was on the veteran team?
Hogan, Luger, Nash,
fucking Nash.
But Hogan put over Kidman by destroying him and getting disqualified, or outside interference, getting Kidman to pin him. Like, it was just a complete and utter train wreck. And
when I think of this story, the first thing I think about is that horrible blood angle.
Which one? There's so many horrible blood angles where they miss Nash.
Where they missed Nash.
Yeah, and Nash just stood there and left laughing.
Yeah.
Like, but
they eventually got him, didn't they?
Well, kind of.
Yeah.
But like on top of that, and this is a running theme because they did this with the NWO as well, there was no payoff.
That's been a running theme in WCW.
Right? There was no payoff to the NWO angle. They just disappeared.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. Number 6. I am going to the booking of Bret Hart in WCW.
Yeah. 100%. There's no way this shouldn't be on your list. Bret has said this 1,000 times. They had no idea what to do with Bret.
Well, take it back a step even further before we even get that deep into it. Bret Hart, for our younger fans, and I think this is a fair comparison, and tell me if I'm wrong. In 1997, after the Montreal Screwjob, Bret Hart had the same aura and buzz about him, how people look at CM Punk today. Is that a fair comparison?
Yeah, I don't think I would have thought to put it like that, but you're not wrong.
Like with Punk coming back to WWE,
mm-hmm.
or Punk. I'll even say when Punk debuted with AEW. Let's go with that because Punk was with WWE for a long time. Yeah. He left very ugly. much like Bret Hart left very ugly.
Yeah.
So now, but the difference between these two is Bret Hart didn't wait 7 years to come back to wrestling.
No.
Bret Hart left the WWE at the end of November and debuted in January.
Yeah.
No, I lied to you. He debuted at the beginning of December. Like it was like 3 weeks after the screw job.
Yeah.
And we have the hottest thing in wrestling right now. Him and Steve Austin were and Sting, I think, were the 3 biggest things in wrestling at this point.
For sure.
Right? And now you've got 2 of these 3 guys on your roster. Actually, and you know what? Austin hadn't even hit his rise yet. Like Austin was still, he wasn't even the biggest thing in wrestling yet. Bret and Sting.
He hadn't even hit his first title run yet.
So you have Bret, Sting, and the NWO.
McMahon's story really hasn't.
It hasn't started yet. It doesn't start till January.
Yeah.
Right? So now you have Bret, Sting, and the NWO are the 3 hottest things in wrestling. All on WCW Monday Nitro.
Yeah.
What are we going to do with Bret Hart? How are we going to bring him in? Oh, fuck, we could put him with, Hogan's with Sting right now, but you got Macho Man on your roster. You got Hall, you got Nash, you got fresh matches like DDP. What are we going to do with Bret Hart? Who are we going to put him with? Hey, you know what we should do? Let's have him be the special referee for Larry Zbyszko and Eric Bischoff.
Yeah.
What?
Not to mention, they took no time to turn him heel, right?
They flip-flopped him 100 times.
And my biggest problem with first of all, I'm going to say that Bret Hart should have never, ever, ever, ever been heel in WCW.
No,
ever.
not for at least 2 years.
They should have brought him in as the hottest babyface in the fucking world.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, was he playing a heel character in WWE at the time? Yes, he was.
50%.
Well,
that's when he was doing his Canada America gimmick. He was only a heel half the time.
Well, he was a heel in every country except for the United States. So
no, he was a heel in only the United States and a face everywhere else in the world.
Yeah, yes. Okay. So, anyways, yes, he's a heel over there. But when he comes over, he's not to be looked at as that, American hating guy anymore. He should be looked at as that guy who left WWF, is coming over to where the big boys play, because this is what you should be watching every Monday night. And he's the hottest guy in the world. He's the one who's going to come in and have awesome matches with Hulk Hogan. He's the one that's going to stand up against the evil in WCW. He's the one that's going to stand up with the heroes like Sting and DDP. He should be written as strong, if not stronger, than Sting and DDP.
Not only that, he's the guy that just punched out Vince McMahon, and people knew about it.
He did what what Eric Bischoff has been dreaming about doing for 2 years.
So here's my question to you. That's, we're going to look back now over 20 years. How do you book Bret Hart coming to WCW? Who do you put him with right away?
I have a hard time saying without being able to sit down and really look at what was going on storyline wise at the time in 1997.
You know what I would do? I'll give you some time to think about it. I'll give you an answer off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But the next month after Starrcade, they put him with Flair at Sold Out. Why not just put him with Flair right away at Starrcade, right?
Yeah.
Or I guess Luger was a face at the time, so you can't do that. You could put him with Macho Man. Macho Man was in a 6-man tag at Starrcade, teaming with fucking Virgil and Scott Norton.
Yeah. You want to make sure he's in some good matches right away. Put him with Scott. Put him with Scott Hall right away.
100%.
You know
what Scott Hall did on this show? He ate a choke slam from the Giant.
And let's be honest,
Bret and Scott have a history.
Kevin Nash is not the greatest worker in the world, but him and Bret always had good matches together.
Yeah, but Nash no show at this show.
Oh, did
he? Yeah, I think he took a bad trip of something and thought he was having a heart attack.
Yeah, that's right.
He just told that story on his podcast.
Yeah. But yeah, that's how I booked him against those guys.
Yeah, sure. I think Scott Hall is a great choice, or the Macho Man. I would put him with one of those two.
Yeah.
I think Macho would have been a great call. That's kind of a big dream match.
Slowly lead to him and Hogan.
Yeah.
Because that's
they could have built him and Hogan at Starrcade 98.
Yeah.
But or fuck, you could have built him and
whatever
Sting.
whatever you do, Make sure that NWO 2000 never happens.
Oh God.
My God, what were they thinking?
So, all right.
Yeah, you know what? You know what? There's another name right there. Him and Jarrett, off the top.
Jarrett wasn't there yet.
Was he not there yet?
No.
Okay. Oh no,
Uh,
you're right, because he was still there when Owen. Yeah, okay. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, Jarrett went back and forth a couple times really quick during that period. Remember he did that terrible NWA gimmick in the WWE?
Yeah. Yeah, that was bad.
Yeah, it's not great. My number 5, I'm going to talk about only half of it because I feel like you're going to talk about half of it as well.
Okay.
And I'm taking us to Bash at the Beach 2000 with Hogan and Jarrett.
Mm-hmm.
So I will just say from an in-ring standpoint, and then when we get to your list, because I'm sure this is on your list, right?
Partially, yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean, it's part of my list, yeah.
So I'll just say, like, imagine turning on the TV and Vince Russo had this issue where he wrote for internet fans, which was terrible. That's not the fan base you should be writing for. You want to write for people that aren't fans of wrestling. So you can make them fans of wrestling.
He's the guy, he keeps telling people that. You got to write for the casuals, bro. You got to write for the people just turning it on. You can't write for the wrestling fans, bro.
So what do you think? What do you think as a wrestling fan? I'm excited. Hey, this fucking New Blood angle's really got me pumped up. Hogan and Jarrett gonna have a banger match for the world title. And you know what? That is kind of a cool match. Hogan and Jarrett haven't fought at that point. Jarrett's been booked strong. Hogan's Hogan. And Hogan comes out, Jarrett comes out, and Jarrett just lays down. And Hogan pins him.
I feel now watching it the same way I felt 25 years ago watching it.
This is stupid.
Ripped off.
Right?
I'm not sure if I did, but there's a chance I spent money on that pay-per-view. And if you spent money on a pay-per-view and that's what they give you, what a slap in the face.
Also,
as fans.
This is where I'm putting out a challenge to 2 friends of the show, Van Landen and Pretty Ricky, who both have come on this show and said that they love WCW the year 2000.
Tell us why.
So I'm just saying, this is WCW the year 2000, boys.
I am also putting on a challenge to two people. Jay and Tyrone rebook Bash at the Beach.
They might have actually. You have to look at the archives. I was great. I actually ran into Jay at Money in the Bank weekend. We had a drink. It was nice.
Is it funny though that Bash at the Beach is both one of the most important pay-per-views and one of the most detrimental pay-per-views in WCW history?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of funny, yeah.
There's been some Bash at the Beach is one of their hugest shows.
And they were only 3 years apart.
Yeah.
So,
well, let's
WCW came very quick.
Let's stick with WCW in the year 2000 for my number 4.
In the year 2000,
I am going with the booking of the world title / David Arquette becoming WCW World Champion.
All right. I get it. This wouldn't be on my list. I get it, though. I get it.
This is terrible. It's terrible, though.
After the years have passed, I care about this. I think there's way worse things. I care about this less and less and less as time passes.
Well, that's why it's not Solo, because I think that they mishandled the WCW world title the last year of the company.
Yes.
And I don't think this helps their case at all.
Absolutely not.
Hey, great. You got on the front of the US Today paper, but not for anything good. You got made fun of.
Yeah.
And then this, like, now I know, okay, wrestling's a work. I get it. But the WCW / NWA world title used to be really important.
Yeah.
And it has such a lineage to it. In the year 2000, so from January 2000 until the very last Nitro, there were 20 world title changes.
That's disgusting.
And the title was vacated 5 times. Now, if you go back to the Finger Poke of Doom, which is where we'll get into that also in a little bit, there were 30 world title changes since the finger poke of doom, and the title was vacated 8 times or 9 times. I can't remember off the top of my head.
That's why, like, there are certain people, you know, that I don't look at as great champions because of the timing of their championship runs. Booker T is one of them. You
Yeah.
can talk about Booker T's 5-time run and
I would say
everything,
he was the best of that period.
but to me at that point, what does it mean? It doesn't mean anything anymore. Booker T, I don't think I honestly believe this. Booker T didn't hit his greatness until he was in WWE for several years.
100%. His stuff with Goldust, like his character work in WWE, put him over the top. Booker T was in ring work was phenomenal in WCW.
King Booker was the best thing he ever did.
100%. It was amazing. Booker was like the only good thing to happen towards the end of WCW, in my opinion. He's the only thing that, like, he won the world title, and when he had it, it felt more important than it had in a long time.
Yeah.
But it still was too late by that time. Like Scott Steiner was a world champion, and that should have been a bigger deal, but it wasn't. You know what I mean? Like, take a look at Jeff Jarrett, I think falls into that category. I love Jeff Jarrett, and I don't take away from him as like a great wrestler and a great champion in the world. But I mean, the guy was like an 8-time WCW champion in a year. Like, that's Harley Race.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. You cannot treat your most important possession in the company like that and put it on a guy like David Arquette.
But Russo saw it as a prop.
100% he did.
That's all it was.
But like, what's the point at that point? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, titles don't mean anything. Okay, tell that to the main event of WrestleMania 40.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They did nothing but build that title up for 4 years with Roman Reigns.
Exactly.
And they did nothing but make that all Cody Rhodes wanted for 2 years. And what happened at the end of that? You had probably one of the greatest moments in wrestling history. And I will say in wrestling history, and I know it's only been a year, but to pull off people having that kind of emotions, people were crying. It's 2024. Wrestling is well known now to be a work. Wrestling, everybody knows everything. We're all smart marks. And they made people cry in the year 2024. It's beautiful, man.
There was once a time, and the 90s were part of that time. There was once a time that if you were the title, if you were at least in the title run, if not the champion, you were known as the hardest working people in the company. Let's just call it the mid to late 90s. You want to tell me that championship didn't mean anything when Bret Hart was holding it? When, sure, say what you want about Shawn's run and Sid's run, but Stone Cold Steve Austin's run with the title, and the way these guys held the title, the way they made it seem so important, because it wasn't just important on television, it was important to them. It was important for them to be champions. They knew what it meant. That title meant everything to Bret. Not Bret just the character, Bret the man. Not just Austin the character, Austin the man. It meant everything to them to be champion because they knew what it really meant. Jump over to WCW 2000, name one champion who could have felt like that, especially when they're holding it for 5 seconds.
I mean, Kevin Nash, literally, Ric Flair won his last title by Kevin Nash handing it to him.
Yeah. They threw that title at Chris Benoit. Benoit was fucking, don't let that thing touch me. I don't want that.
Oh, yeah.
My
number 3, we're going to talk about the ending of Bill Goldberg's streak.
I'm so torn on this because it had to end eventually.
Not when it did.
Not when it did. It should have been a little bit longer. Not with who? Nash is not the guy.
No.
However,
I mean, Nash was over. I get it.
I like the stun gun.
I didn't hate the stun gun.
I thought it was a good way to put the fucking the bull down. How else are you going to put a man like Bill Goldberg down? To me, I think that puts Bill Goldberg over. I like that.
No, this did
But
not put Bill Goldberg over. Bill Goldberg was never the same after this.
because of all the other circumstances.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah. It shouldn't have been Kevin Nash. It shouldn't have been when it was.
It was
but,
way too soon.
Yeah.
Goldberg had only been the champion for like 4 or 5 months.
Exactly.
And he was red hot.
Mm-hmm.
He should have stayed undefeated till at least July.
Yeah.
At least. I don't know who I'd have in the streak though. I didn't have a problem. Like
there's a number of names. You got your Hulk Hogan. Very well could have been the man to do it. Bret Hart could have been the man to do it.
Now, and Nash, you can say as well, wasn't the worst choice on the planet because Nash he was super over at this time. He was one of the top baby faces in the company.
I mean,
but these are all.
I would have rather to be Scott because Scott never got his moment.
So, but we're naming Hogan, Hall, Nash, Bret. These guys are all in their 40s and 50s.
True.
Is there a younger talent on the roster like a Conan? I'm not saying Conan, but I mean like at the time Conan was over, or Scott Steiner, even though he was still older. This
was not a young roster. Let's be honest.
Scott Steiner could have gotten a lot out of that.
There were some guys. You're gonna laugh at me, okay? And I'm probably wrong, but I'm just gonna throw a name out there because to me he was very talented. Maybe not world champion talented though. But maybe you got like Vampiro.
Yeah, I don't think he was over enough. And he wasn't there at that point either. Vampiro didn't come till the late 90s, right?
99, 2000, yeah.
Yeah.
But
here's
a guy on these levels, because unfortunately all the guys that were that talented on the mid card were all the cruiserweights.
What about Chris Benoit?
If they would have pulled the trigger on Benoit then, rather than just tossing him a pity title when they did a year later, yeah, sure.
I think Benoit could have really got made into a big star. If you put a manager with him,
I'm not sure I want to see a program with Goldberg and Benoit though.
Oh my God, they would beat the hell out of each other.
Yeah.
Like Benoit would take what Goldberg has and Benoit would hit Goldberg back hard. I actually would really like to see the match between those guys. You know what I think, though, the right call would have been? I think DDP would have been the right choice. And I know he was older as well.
But you started talking about older guys, so...
But I just feel like even though DDP was older, his character...
We're talking a lot about face characters here, though. We're talking about Benoit. We're talking about DDP. Is that what you want to do? Because we're not turning DDP heel here.
I mean, look at their match at Halloween Havoc. If you take that match and you put it at Bash at the Beach the following year instead, and have Dallas go over, you got a megastar.
Yeah, wrong.
Right?
Again, older. Would you consider Sting?
No.
Sting didn't need it.
At that point, too, when he was doing Wolfpack Sting.
Maybe even Flair. Again, older.
I could not see Flair.
But Flair beating Goldberg.
But what do you get out of that? Where do you go? Like Flair wasn't in the company at this point.
No, he wasn't there.
No, he was getting fire me. Flair had just come back at Starrcade, actually. Flair had just come back at Starrcade from Bischoff firing him. Raven would have been an interesting choice. I don't think he could carry the company though.
I would have loved to see him with the world title, but I don't think the world title would have stayed on him very long.
No.
And if you're going to take the world title off Goldberg, you can't be a transitional champion.
No, I agree. I think I'm going with Benoit or DDP. Those are my final two.
Cool.
Speaking of final twos, my number two, Starrcade 1997, Sting versus Hogan.
Mm-hmm.
This to me is where I think the real start was a couple months earlier when Bischoff joined the NWO. To me, that was
I always like that angle,
I
though. I
didn't
like
I
the NWO.
it made
It,
no
him
sense.
yeah, like
It
him
was
coming out
terribly
every week,
done.
him coming out every week and picking fights with Vince and the stuff with the motorcycle and everything he did.
He
He
picked
was
a fight
great.
with Vince. What
He was
pay-per-view
great.
buys did that deal?
I'm not saying it was good for the company. I'm just saying it was entertaining television.
I hated it.
I will have to agree to disagree in this
I
one.
I love I love Heel Bischoff.
I
Like
loved him. I loved him as an NWO member.
I love his work. Like, don't get me wrong, I thought he was very entertaining in the role, but it just made no sense. Like, why? There was no reasoning behind it. There was no rhyme or reason to it, and it really made the NWO less cool.
The one and only reason and rhyme and reason behind it was because the other company, their owner came out and said, "Hey, look, I'm the owner and I'm a bad guy." So they said, "Oh well, I guess I got to do that too."
Yeah, but it just
There's the
like
rhyme and reason.
to me it hurt the NWO because at the time the NWO was like they were fucking cool.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like, oh, we're hanging out with the boss. It's like that's not cool.
Well, no, but you have to
I don't
flip
care
that.
how many
We're
leather
not hanging out.
jackets you put on Bischoff.
We're not hanging out with the boss. We own the boss.
I don't think that's cool. I think it took their edge away.
I'll disagree with you.
It took their edge away. How do you find that edgy? Oh, we're with the boss now. We can do whatever we want. Compared to we're just gonna do whatever we want. I'm showing up with baseball bats and I will kill all of you.
Yeah.
Here's my spray paint. I just beat up 90% of your rosters. Suck on
I
that,
don't-
Dungeon of Doom.
I just don't think it. I don't think it was needed. I don't think it hurt the NWO though.
I think that was the first time
Okay.
that the NWO, to me, in my opinion,
Okay.
the booking of Hogan and Sting at Starrcade 97, that was when we started taking on some water, though.
We're really going to talk about this when we talk about the backstage implications to this. Why we got here, the reasons this match is the shit show it was. We're going to talk about it in my list because
Well, I'll just say from
this is ridiculous stuff. This should have never happened. This shouldn't even been a thing.
I'll just say from an in-ring standpoint, I watched this live on pay-per-view.
Yeah, I did too.
And I did not have a fucking clue what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
Because Hulk Hogan dropped the leg from out of nowhere. There was no build-up to it also. The leg looked terrible. The announcers didn't even pay attention to it. And then there was just a normal 3 count. And Hogan beat Sting. And I was just like, wow, Sting, you suck. like what a terrible showing you've had. We waited 2 years for this. And you shit the bed. You shit the bed. And then Bret Hart came out and was like, I had said I would never let a screw job happen. And the microphone wasn't even on for the first half of his promo.
Yeah.
So no one knew what the fuck he was saying. I said I would never let this happen again, and I'm never going to let this happen again. I'm the referee now. And then, like, Bret Hart, because he was a special guest referee earlier in the night, has now got a full referee license and is the head official and the boss that can just restart the biggest match in company history.
That makes
and
sense,
then
yeah.
just Scorpion Deathlock and it's over.
Mm-hmm.
Like, man, there is one finish to this match. And to top it all off, Hogan dominated the whole match.
Yeah.
Like, he whooped Sting's ass. This should have been fucking Sting comes out, takes 85% of the match, let Hogan beat him down a little bit, have Sting fucking Hulk up, and make Hogan tap out.
Yep.
That's pretty fucking easy, man.
That's what people paid to see, but no.
Well, my number one then, because we'll get into yours after.
This is very obvious.
We're talking the January 4th edition of Monday Nitro, which featured the Finger Poke of Doom and the That Will Put Butts in the Seats line from Tony Schiavone. So this was the official end of Bill Goldberg. He was never the same after this.
People forget that those two things happened in the same night, by the way.
I know. This to me, this was the night
these are two of the top three. I'll talk about my idea of your order in a minute. But out of the three things that really are embedded in people's brains of the bad shit that caused WCW's downfall, two of them happened in the same night. Like, that's ridiculous.
This Nitro was they never recovered from this.
Never.
And it's their own fault because they sent all their viewers to the WWE and they never came back. They just so fucking right. Like Mick Foley's winning the Cactus Jack, Mankind, he's winning the belt. Everybody turned the channel immediately. That might have been the best thing that happened to WCW because then nobody saw the Finger Poke of Doom.
They underestimated the love people had for Mankind, the love people had for Mick Foley.
Not to mention, you're doing a terrible, terrible storyline throughout the show where Bill Goldberg allegedly groped Miss Elizabeth.
Yeah.
And he's in jail. And then he runs out for his title rematch. And then, but it's too late. And then you've got Hogan coming from out of nowhere. He's been off TV for months saying he's running for the president of the United States of America. He went on the Jay Leno show and announced that he would run for the president of the United States of America.
Yeah.
And then he comes out and they do the finger poke of doom. It was terrible. And then Goldberg runs out and they just killed him.
Yeah.
And they did this new NWO with Buff and Scott Steiner and Hall. And then they just disregarded the old NWO. They were just fucking shit after that. It was awful. Great shirts with the red and the white together, though. I did like the shirts.
Sure. Yeah.
But WCW.
I had one of those shirts. I had one of those shirts.
Yeah, great shirt. I'm sure Rob Eric's got one.
Yeah.
But WCW was never the same after this. And then they brought David Flair in it to headline the next pay-per-view. That was their follow-up. Rick and David against Kurt Hennig and Barry Windham was the marquee match. And then the main event was Scott Hall versus Goldberg in a ladder taser match. Sold out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so I mean, apropos name, sold out really fit the bill.
No, it didn't, because that arena, I guarantee you, was not sold out.
Oh, wow. True enough. I like your list. The only switch I probably would have made is the Bash at the Beach stuff. To me, is my number 2.
Okay. I just think WCW was dead by that point. It didn't even matter.
I think the stuff with if it happened earlier, it would even be my number 1 because I think that's a worse thing to happen than even the finger poke of doom.
I think it was too. It didn't matter by that point, right?
Because of the timeline and where the finger poke of doom happened, it's more detrimental. But I just think it's one of the worst things to ever happen on WCW television was the Jeff Jarrett angle.
Yeah, and the only other honorable mention I had was just the booking of the NWO after Bischoff joined, where everybody joined the NWO.
Yeah, that was dumb.
And
then you have the Latino world order and the
Wolfpack, and Bischoff joining the NWO was on my honorable mentions as well.
Yeah, okay.
But I mean, the Bash at the Beach, yeah, it was like a black eye on the industry, but I mean, I don't put it over Starrcade. I stand by it because like there was no buzz. There was no buzz going into Hogan and Jarrett. Nobody gave a shit. But Starrcade was the biggest pay-per-view that WCW ever did by a long shot. That was the biggest pay-per-view number they ever did. And instead of doing the easy thing and probably hooking all these new fans, they did that. And like that hurt the business. WCW had no business to hurt by the time Bash at the Beach rolled around.
My list is kind of, it's a little all over the place because it's really a list of things that of the worst decisions that were made behind the camera.
Yeah, and again, check out the documentary because they really go into detail to a lot of what's probably going to be on your list.
Some of these things, and we'll get there when we get there, but for example, my number 6, did it lead towards the actual end of WCW? No, I don't think so. But did it massively hurt WCW at the point WCW was in and bring it back a notch? Of course it did. So not all these things are exactly why WCW died, but these are some of the worst things that could have been done in the booking, in the backstage. My number 7 is having such a toxic environment that your best professional wrestlers don't want to be there anymore. And I basically wrote down letting the Radicals and Chris Jericho leave the company.
I would have had this at probably like my number 3 or 4, I think.
When they started walking out, yeah, I'm not sure about my order. I'm not going to stand by my order. I'm going to stand by the things on my list. I'm not going to stand by my order. I'll say that right out now.
Yeah.
But watching guys like Benoit, that was really when you knew, okay, they're fucking up, because you see guys. Maybe Bischoff didn't see these guys as stars, but we did. We as fans, we loved Benoit. Everybody loved Benoit. When Benoit and Malenko were part of the Horsemen, tell me you didn't mark it.
I was
huge.
I was the
amazing.
biggest Chris Benoit and Dean Malenko fan. I might have been the only person in the world that wasn't mad. He was PWI 500 number 1.
Right? And I loved Eddie Guerrero.
Mhm.
I was a moderate fan of Perry Saturn because I enjoyed the
I like
WWE
Perry Saturn
stuff. Yeah. I never saw him as a star.
Isn't it crazy though? Isn't it crazy that these guys all left because of Russo? Because Russo got fired? Like, that's funny to me to think about.
That's very funny.
And I don't know if you've heard this or not, and unfortunately Kevin Sullivan is not doing well.
No, I haven't.
He's very he's very
yeah,
just not in great shape, but he has come out and said that he has a big secret to tell about Chris Benoit that he will be releasing soon.
Okay. I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Interesting.
Very
Work her till the end, brother.
I guess so. I put the Radicals on the list, but what this really is the Radicals. It's Paul White. It's Chris Jericho. It's guys dropping like flies because they just don't want to be in that company anymore. And allowing WWE, WWF to reap all the rewards, because out of the 6 people that I just mentioned, 4 of them became megastars. 4 of them became world champions. You know what I mean? Like 4 of them became the face of the company. That's not saying nothing, right? My number 6, this like saying this didn't lead to the death of WCW, because it happened before the rise of WCW, but it sure as hell was a bad decision on somebody's part, and that was hiring Jim Herd. I think we have to talk about Jim Herd here.
Maybe people like Pizza Hut.
They hired this guy. This is like, at least you and I was gonna say this is like hiring you or I to run a wrestling promotion. But no, you and I are wrestling fans. We could actually do a pretty good job.
And that'd be like hiring you to run a restaurant.
You've been talking to my boss. Jim Herd didn't know the first thing about professional wrestling. He ran a Pizza Hut, for Christ's sake. He comes in, and right away just starts booking horrible things.
You tell me the ding dongs aren't drawn, buddy. How you gonna pin them?
It was just like, I thought I hated the Bill Watts era.
I love the Bill Watts era.
The Jim Herd era, but Bill Watts, like, he made Bill Watts' booking, and Bill Watts,
his rules suck, but there's a lot of great match. But you know what though?
Matches at least. But
I will say this: the Jim Herd era, Jim Herd sucks. But if you look at WCW from an in-ring standpoint, from 1991 to 1993, it's phenomenal. That's when the Dangerous Alliance was running wild. Like, it's some of the best work they've ever done.
Some of it's good, but
this doesn't make my list because this had nothing to do with killing WCW. So
I'm admitting that. I'm just thinking, if we're talking about the worst decisions made, because I mean, hell, they even talked about it in the documentary, the death of WCW. So it had to be talked about. That's why it's my number 6 and not my number 5.
There was some bad stuff that he did, but I love the product this time. So I might be a Jim Herd guy. Give me a shirt.
Don't let Ric Flair hear you say that.
Oh, what's he gonna do? Get mad?
My number 5, I think, is actually going to be a recurring theme as we move on through my list. It's just going to keep coming up. My number 5 is just pure out the lack of leadership in WCW.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter if this was in the Jim Herd era, it didn't matter if it was in the Eric Bischoff era, if it was in the Vince Russo era. There was never this. It was always the inmates running the asylum.
Yeah.
And we've discussed this where I believe AEW is in vast danger of walking this road as well. And I really hope that Tony and to an extent the Bucks learn from WCW's mistakes and not let it go down this road. But that's what it was. Eric Bischoff was not running the show. Ted Turner wasn't running the show.
Well, Bischoff admitted it. He was just making shit up as he went. That's how Nitro became.
Hulk Hogan was running the show.
Mhm.
Kevin Nash was running the show. Everybody was just doing what they wanted. There was no sense of order. It was chaos. It really was. And I think on all aspects, this hurt the company right to the very end.
100%.
My number 4. Say what you want about Eric about Bill Goldberg. We can talk about Bill Goldberg all day long. Bill Goldberg is without a doubt the biggest star ever created out of WCW. He's one of the biggest stars of the 1990s.
Best super kicks with Shawn Michaels.
Oh God.
Sorry, Brett.
Brett's coming after you now. You're getting the bitter Brett treatment. But take this one in one only instance of the question. My number 4 is the failure to create stars. They depended so hard on your Hulk Hogan's and your Ric Flair's and your
I would tweak that to say failure to create main event stars, because I can only think of 2 that they created the whole time.
Would you Goldberg and DDP?
Yeah.
Yeah, because like did they have guys that could have been elevated to be bigger stars? Sure. But Jericho, who could have been a massive star in that company,
I don't know if he could have been.
Started being a star, started getting over. Well, obviously he was getting over because the day he debuted in WWF, he was over as Rover.
He was over. I don't know if I see Jericho as being the world champion in WCW. I don't know why. I see him as the world champion in WWE, but not in WCW. I don't know. That mid card was so talented, but
he could have been a massive star. Raven could have been a massive star.
Yeah.
There are people that could have been massive star had they allowed to be, but the people that were made to be stars, the people that were facing that company, were all established people.
That's hard too, because when you're paying guys like you're paying Hall, Nash, Hogan, like Sting, Macho, you want them to be in those spots. But I think you're getting your money's worth better putting Macho in the mid card and elevating DDP like he did, right? Having Hall elevate Raven, whatever, right? Like, yeah, they created 2 main event players.
I don't think you're going to agree with my number 3, and I'd like to see how you change it, because I don't think you'll agree with it. My number 3 is firing Eric Bischoff and hiring Vince Russo.
Well, they were not one and the same.
I don't think they should have sent Eric home. I don't. I think they could have worked with Eric to fix the company. I don't think you send Eric home.
It sounded like Eric needed to be sent home, though, because Eric flat out said on the documentary, "I was done. I didn't care."
Put him on a break. Give him a vacation. You know what I mean? Don't fire him. I think that did more harm than good, because then you bring him back and you don't, and that's kind of part of this of my number 3 is you're not giving. This goes back to my number 5, really, with the lack of leadership. You're not giving the role to either Vince Russo or Eric Bischoff. They're telling Vince Russo, "Oh, you're in charge. You're in charge."
Well, they had Bill Burr. Bill Burr, is that his name? Running it for a while.
Then they're going to
Brad Siegel. That was his name. Yeah, Brad Siegel.
One of them's going to Vince saying, "You're in charge." The other one's going to Eric, "You're in charge," and they both think they're in charge.
Well, but that's like you're jumping ahead. Like that's a whole year later, right? Like Russo had the reins.
So
Russo had the reins for 5 months before, and then they were both off TV for 4 months until they were brought back.
I just think, yes, did it start going downhill before they fired Eric? Yes, but I think it really fell off the fucking deep end.
Well, yeah, they didn't, because they fired Eric and had nobody to replace him.
Yes,
for months.
Yeah,
and then
I
know
think,
what?
I think firing Eric Bischoff was a detrimental.
Well, yeah, looking in hindsight, but also we don't know what Bischoff's mentality was back then. Like the inmates were really running the asylum. Bischoff was burnt out. He flat out said, "I don't want to be here anymore," and then he wasn't.
Yeah,
like and we can all relate to going through what Eric's gone through. Like
sure.
I've been there a million times in my life, but but I don't know about this one. I think it's too far.
I knew that.
I just think it's too far of a stretch too, because like you got to think about it from WCW's point of view. Monday Night Raw is on fire. Oh my God, we just signed their 2 lead television writers, but you don't know that McMahon is really
too, didn't they?
Right? Yeah, and you don't know that McMahon is killing. Like he's the final boss.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You just think, holy fuck, I got his brains.
Yeah.
Like that's a huge signing for them at that point.
My number 2 is a pet peeve of mine. I hate this no matter what company we're talking about, but WCW did it the worst. This is allowing wrestlers to have the book / changing bookers too often. That book changed hands, more than some people changed their underpants. And that was a big problem in creative. But it bothers me. I know it's an old school thing to do, but it's too old school to be happening in the 90s. There's no reason in 1990, 5 or 6 that any active wrestler should be having the book, especially if your name is Kevin Nash.
I mean, Nash had a lot of good booking as well. He just gets remembered for the bad stuff, right?
I just don't think as a wrestler, I don't like the idea of an active wrestler being the book.
I agree, especially when the first thing he does is put the strap on himself.
Well, that's it.
Right?
I never liked the idea. And that's not to say that it doesn't work sometimes. I think it worked in the case of Kevin Sullivan. I think Kevin Sullivan did some great booking. And Kevin Sullivan wasn't a selfish booker, but I still don't like the fact that he was an active wrestler with the book.
Well, that's because also Kevin Sullivan
is Dusty. I hated Dusty. I loved Dusty's booking.
Yeah, Dusty was good and bad. I think Dusty and Nash are very similar as bookers.
Yeah.
Creative control, I agree with 100%. No wrestler should ever have creative control.
We're going to get to that in a minute. We're not talking about creative control. We're just talking about the book.
I don't fully agree with the number of bookers because, like, think about it. When did Bischoff take over the book? 94? And he was in power till 98.
But did he really have the book?
Yeah. He had a committee with him, but he was booking. Like, he was the main guy.
Yeah.
And then they had that transitional period where Nash was the booker until they brought Russo in. No. Yeah. Who took the book after Nash? I guess Nash had the book for a while, right?
Nash had the book for a while, and then
Russo came in.
Yeah, and then
it was
somebody in between.
There's one person in between for sure. Well, there was the guy before Nash, like the office guy, Brad Siegel.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, yeah.
You want to talk about creative control? My number one of the worst things that WCW did behind the stage was giving Hulk Hogan creative control.
100%.
That was, and this is one of the earliest things Bischoff did, because this happens back in 94.
Mm-hmm.
And
Bischoff made the mistake of telling Hogan how bad he wanted him.
Yeah, and he was still paying for that mistake in 2000. Like that was the worst. You don't do that. Why would you do that? What a stupid thing to do.
Well, I mean, if he didn't do that, though, to play devil's advocate, if he didn't do that, we would have never got Hogan versus Beefcake at Starrcade. So
it's just, you have given the power to the man that could make and break stars, the man who can make and break your company, the man that could make a new stars for your company, who has the power to make stars for your company. But he now also has the power to say, it doesn't work for me, brother.
I can only think of one time that he made a star in WCW.
Well, that's them saying.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
One time.
If he didn't have that creative control, it would have been, hey, Hogan, we need you to put this guy over. No, you don't like doing that? Well, sorry, But in this instance,
different with Hogan though. Like you can't be like, sorry, no. You can't do that with some guys.
Nobody's bigger than the business, man.
Hogan was bigger than WCW at the time.
I said, okay, maybe they're bigger than that business.
No one's bigger than the business as a whole. No one's bigger than the business as a whole. But I mean, when you got a guy like Hulk Hogan, who at the time is your only draw at that time period, like you gotta take his word for a lot of stuff. But that being said, I would never give him creative control. But you can't tell a guy like Hulk Hogan, fuck you, you're doing this either. Like there is a political game that has to be played.
Yeah, well, because that worked so well for Vince and Brett.
It did, actually, if you think about it.
It worked for Vince.
Because of that political game, we got Mr. McMahon, which created the biggest boom period in the business.
You're not wrong.
But Vince did that on purpose. Vince pitted people against each other.
Oh, for sure he did. Yeah.
He did it with Hogan and Brett. He did it with Brett and Shawn.
Mm-hmm. There's one thing that didn't make my list, and I think people are gonna be like, "You're missing something," and it's purposely not on my list because I don't agree that it belongs on my list. On every other list I've read, it says guaranteed contracts.
Well, that's the best thing that could have happened.
Thank you.
Nothing wrong with the boys making money, man.
If the guaranteed contracts don't come out of this era, we may not see the pay structure we have today.
Yeah, I'm all for guaranteed contract. And it's the same thing with like musicians. Like I hate the term sellout. No. What are you selling out? This is what your livelihood is. You're sell out every time.
Yes.
Would you rather play a dive bar or the fucking Air Canada Center?
100%.
Yeah, fuck that. Anyone who put that on their list is a fucking idiot.
Guaranteed money is the best thing to happen. It's the best thing Hogan or Hall and Nash ever did. It's better than anything they did in the ring. It's that's their contribution to professional wrestling, is making sure the boys got paid. And yes, were they selfish? Were they doing it for themselves? 100% they were. But why not? Their actions, their selfish actions made it so in 2024, nobody is getting pennies for jerking the curtain. Nobody is, driving from city to city hoping to make a couple bucks. They know they're getting paid. And that's the best thing to happen. So anybody who had that on their list of the bad things that come into WCW, I don't think they know what you're talking about.
The last thing I want to say about WCW before we plug Barry Wrestling and take it home is I know we talked a lot of negativity about WCW today. However,
I loved it.
WCW was actually amazing.
Yeah.
Go back, watch the Dangerous Alliance, watch the beginning of the NWO.
We've discussed this. WCW 1992.
Jim Herd era, brother.
I know it is, but I'm not talking I'm talking the matches. Like there's some great matches.
The cruiserweight division, the undercard in WCW, the mid card. Mm-hmm. For all the bad, there was a lot of good. So no, World War III should have. You know what? That's on my list.
I love
my number one. But yes, that if you're ever looking for some good matches, hit us up on YouTube, send us a message. Mm-hmm. Hit us up on Spotify, send us a message. And I will recommend, or Mike will recommend, some great WCW matches you should check out.
Yeah.
Speaking of,
or go to our YouTube page, go a few years in the archives, and there's probably some watch-alongs we've done.
There's one or two WCW. We got a copyright on a lot of them.
Yeah.
Speaking of great wrestling, Barry Wrestling. This Saturday, July the 12th, I will be there doing the ring announcing. Pretty fun card here.
Hold on a second here. Can you say the date again, please?
July the 20th. I said the 12th, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
Well, it's late and I'm getting tired and I have an episode of Gilmore Girls I need to watch.
I just want to make sure that people know when they're going to the show. That's all.
If you're listening to this on Thursday, it will be this Saturday. Check out IWTV to catch up with all Barry Wrestling. We've got brand new Three Pistols champion Van Landen going up against a mystery opponent. Tag titles on the line in a, I believe it's called a Sober Sips Beach Blast match. But I've also heard that Shiloh is very angry that this match has been announced, and she's not happy about it. So there could be some repercussions going on. Who knows with Shiloh? We're gonna see Young Jay Lee in action, taking on the up and comer who trained with Dustin Rhodes, Ali. And world title on the line, Clutch Jesse V defending against another newcomer, Bryce Hansen, who's a young stud. So it's kind of like Barry Wrestling New Generation for this show. It's going to be a great show. They always deliver. And come say hi to me, because I'll be there. Come to the Count It Out table and subscribe to our YouTube page.
Is that really a selling factor here?
I mean, if they're listening to the show, maybe.
Yeah.
I'll say hi.
Will you though? You barely say hi to me when I'm at the show. You're always running around. I'm too busy. I'm busy.
That's fair.
You're the only man busier than Sean Gibson at those shows.
Well, I mean, I'm putting in the grind, baby. We can't all just sit at the Count It Out table and bitch at me to set it up.
I mean, that's what we and Wilson have been doing for 4 years. So I disagree.
Fair. Although I will say Wilson, he's pretty good with the ring crew.
Yes.
You gotta come up to more shows. I like when you're there.
Yeah, I'd love it if I didn't have to work for a living.
Just don't.
Oh,
retire.
I'm trying, man.
Sweet.
I'm trying so hard.
All right, I don't know what we're gonna do next week. Might be a list, might be an interview. I got the interview itch going big time, everybody. So stick around. We're gonna do some interviews soon.
Well, we still have my my hometowns list to do.
Yeah.
We do have interviews. We have a friend of the show where I'll just pull the curtain back. Eventually, in the next 2-3 weeks, friend of the show, Emilio Albi, will be joining us. He's got big news to talk about, and he'll probably jump on and do a list with us, maybe. It's always fun to have Emilio.
That's Destiny Wrestling owner, Emilio.
Yes, sir. It's always fun to have him on the show.
Heatwave's on the 17th of August, I believe.
I believe so. Yeah, big show.
Yeah, let me just pull that up to make sure so we can give all our listeners the right information. Yeah, August 17th, Saturday, August 17th. You and I will not be able to attend this show, Mike.
Oh, we will not.
We'll be celebrating my bachelor party on that.
The only time I'm actually okay not going to a wrestling show because I'm going to be tits deep in alcohol.
But this show is loaded from top to bottom. You got your Destiny World Champion Trent Seven. A lot of TNA presence here with Steve Macklin, Jody Threat, Speedball Mike Bailey, Moose, Ash by Elegance. You've got Kelly and what's his name there? Cash flow guy. AJ Francis.
Yeah.
Thank you. He's going to be taking on Tyler Turva. Flight or Fight versus Sinner and Saints. Like all my money there. Mark Wheeler against Speedball Mike Bailey. Banger of a match.
I'll sit there and say for a minute. You came to me with the name Judas Icarus about 1.5 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'd never heard of him before. And then I watched his match with Von Vertigo, and I've been a fan ever since. To see him signed to TNA makes my heart swell.
Me too. Great dude.
That guy deserves it.
And he's such a nice guy to talk to.
Yeah.
And Steel Cage main event, Trent Seven against Steve Macklin. So yeah, this is a banger of a show. But before we get there, we've got Barry Wrestling, Summer Brawl 2. Barry Wrestling New Generation taking over. I'm excited for the show. It's gonna be a good time. I got nothing. You got anything?
You got nothing? All right, man. Well, until next week, let's see what we do next week. Like you said, could be a list, could be an interview.
Come on, interview.
Hey?
Come on, interview.
No matter what, it's always a good time. And it's an even better time if you reach down there, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit that share button. Let people know about the show. Put it on your wall. Put it on your Instagram. Put it on your story. Let people know about that you're listening. It's a great way for us to grow. we've been growing so much in the last few weeks. We love you guys for it. Thank you so much. We're going to keep doing it next week. And until then, you have been Count It Out.
Cheers.